Okay. Hello, everyone. I had a feeling maybe I should record something tonight. What if the future is already here? I thought about talking about something, I would say a branch or for our species, unwritten chapter in metaphysics. And so I thought about how can one human being make the idea of the future more engageable? We human beings have transformed our relationship with a meaningless physical existence into a subjective, dynamic story. Pretty much a creature used language and transformed emptiness into, for now, temporary meaning. My own fascination with this topic, it consists of certain experiences I've had and just the imagery, the inner realm imagery I give to my own divine experiences. Now, when someone speaks about divinity, is it a sermon, is it fantasy fiction? But I have this view, to make it easy for myself to talk about this, is that I am considering every person's subjective identity to be a story in the void, and so emptiness and the nothingness of reality, the meaninglessness of reality, gives me a permission to at least wonder about, in the void, what fiction could, like a seed that could grow into something bigger, what narrative has a potential. And on some level, here's the thing about, I would say, multi-layered thinking, right? And people are different, people have different approaches to this. My attitude is that the moment I realized my mind is not a subject, and what I mean by this is that most people, because they have an individual physical body, their own view to themselves is that they need to be an individual subjective self, right? And I'm not saying that a person shouldn't be an individual subjective self, or should. I'm pretty much saying that in my experience as a human being, when I close my eyes, I am not limited to the snapshot image and story of my body. When my eyes are open, biological entity, physical entity. But when I close my eyes, it's not that I ignore the sensations of the outer realms. It's not that just because I close my eyes, I forget the world that's in front of me. It's just that when I close my eyes, there is a simplicity, there is an ease. It's as if before we were human beings, we were spheres of attention. And within these spheres of attention, the movement of reality is based on the contextual authorization. What I mean by this is that who you are is based on the world you're walking in. And And if a person has certain permissions, authorizations, and how they are considering the world to be, those authorizations and freedoms, they are, you could say, playfully behind your eyes. They're the freedoms that are inaccessible in front of our eyes are accessible. Just checking to see if stream's working or not. Anyways. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is that behind your eyes, there is access to a world where people call it imagination, but what it is that there is a one-sided witness. And it's pretty much like space is noticing how the body is receiving perception, right? We're living in a world right now where human beings have to make decisions, and the more connected we become, integrative, the more a sort of network is established, the choices and decisions we make are important. And I have noticed that to continue, I have noticed that from this angle that every person's decision or a series of decisions, or we can say what is life, a human being is born, a human being is a sort of energetic outlet, and in some sense where the energy goes or how the energy is even received by an energetic being, it determines the type of decisions that a creature makes. So it's like we're living at that point where, as much as we consider imagination to be unreal, we know that it is a very essential part to how human beings go about comprehending their environments and making decisions, right? And it's like this view where it's as if on one level we treat imagination unreal, but reality is being imagined, or the brain is simulating a self in the moment. Human decisions have a very it's as if we draw, if the human being was a point, a very important line that has passed through this point is the concept of time. And I'm trying to get to this view that, okay, 8 billion human beings on a rock in the middle of nowhere, their decisions are beginning to matter the more connected we're becoming. And so where are the decisions of human beings arising from? And this is where it gets interesting, because so far when I look at the world and let's say the patterns of karmic actualization of just various entities moving in this realm, to me the view is that, okay, some human beings, they're content with the information that is most immediate and local to them. It's another way of saying human beings are starting off processing the information found in the present. Now, when a human being is going in life, and life is a sort of dynamic journey, we cannot avoid its kind of journey component, and similar to how even In video games, they're checkpoints. Every day a person wakes up, it's like you return to the checkpoint of yesterday, right? To some degree, not completely, but the person returns to the conscious waking state, right? There's some people who have this view that, let's say, life is just one physical room. You open your eyes from a sort of subjective nothingness in the morning, and you're just in this one world, and you live and go about your day and sleep, and then the next day you're in the same world, right? But there is this approach a person can have that they are actually a multidimensional being, and physical existence is one room, right? It's how would I say it? It's like let's say its manifestation of an entity is like finding yourself in a building. The conscious waking state, this physical existence, is one room of this building. Now, there is this notion that there are parallel rooms right now. We have consciously access to one parallel room, and that's how the mind is acting as a dimension of its own. Right, pretty much any time there is something observing something else, it's as if it's very geometrically would be like, how would I say it? It would be like a right angle, and two lines that are at a right angle, they suddenly become parallel. My main point was, I didn't actually complete it. Pretty much human beings have to make important decisions. Where are these important decisions coming from? The human being has a relationship with the present, which is their immediate information. They have a relationship with the past, which is pretty much how from like a sort of what a beginning means is, the word beginning is another way of saying out of nowhere, you know? And so the child opens its eyes, gets a sort of sequence of experiences, and then in its processing of these of previous experiences, it articulates future potentials and pretty much gives a meaning to the present, right? That means it's like when I look around in my moment right now, even as I'm giving this talk, when I look around and ask myself, okay, where's the meaning of stuff coming from? I notice that in order for something to mean anything, I connect it to the past, right? It's as if what's this object in front of me in the moment, right? And the answer comes, it's a microphone that I bought and some company manufactured, and da-da-da-da-da. The past is kind of filling up the meaning of the present. Now, something I have noticed, and I think it's due to how we're actually multidimensional beings with civilization or Civilization 1.0 or current times, they're trying to make people feel as if they're only in one dimension. You know, it's as if for a multidimensional being, the meaning of success becomes something very different than actual consequence, right? If you're in one dimension, sure, cause and effect, you gotta listen to the karma. But if you're a multidimensional being, what would the karma of multiple dimensions imply? Right? This is the sophistication and fascination that actually intellectually comes with trying to wonder about the center of human intelligence not just being locally true, but also non-locally possible. Right? You see, it's pretty much this attitude. That we are present in unknown ways before we are present as a knowable personality to ourselves. A lot of people in this world, you know, to me, I've kind of had my, you know, off days, but, you know, it's like we gotta be real and we gotta say it's like somebody's gotta say it. It seems to me through technological acceleration of just the expectation of what kind of beings we gotta be in culture, a lot of people are actually depressed. And when I say depressed, it's another way of saying their past success is intervening with their future success. Okay? And it's another way of saying it's like there was a world we were in before and we didn't succeed in that world, and now we're in a new world, but we're still trying to succeed in the world in the past. past, right? It's pretty much like every day the human being wakes up, and what happens? Like, intelligence is a simulation of, it's a projection of, let's say, entitlement to information, which is an entity, right? Pretty much every day the moment is an empty canvas, and it's like how we live, how we are alive, and what calls us up from our seats in the day, right? To me, it's I've always had a relationship with the concept of a living inspiration. When I say living inspiration, I don't mean just like somebody who's inspiring. I mean that there's a force. That means ultimately when we look at human beings, we're considering the consequence of their actions to be the result of a force. Now, what is the origin of that force that on a rock in the middle of nowhere is moving the eyes of creatures? I mean, aside from the duality of, okay, is it from us or is it from something else, right? I would say that the human being has to first realize that there is unknown variables to existence. That means somebody could, let's say a billionaire brings like the smartest people on the planet in front of me, right? And I would look at all those incredibly, let's say, smart, next level geniuses, and I would be like, okay, anyone convinced that in a changing, gigantic, unknown world, right, that they know, it's as if there's a limitation right there, right? That means if there was let's say, a sort of interdimensional battle that the species had to go through in the future, and like poetically, like let's say Mr. Within was like a general would come to recruit people for the future, for this future, let's say, interdimensional war. It's as if anybody convinced by the truths of one dimension shatters the possibility, denies their being the possibility of what some traditions call the invisible other, right? So this is when spirituality is it goes up a notch, because the person's like, how honest do I want to be with all the unknown glitches in the system of my perception? What in this life convinces me of myself? And then you see that it's your past memories, but then there's like this empty room, there's like this empty space, as if the person who looks at their past goes deeply into their memories of who they were, and they're like, man, I messed up, I could have done that, I could have done this. And suddenly at some point, it's as if after the person has walked in the shadow of their own being, right, then the person wonders about the light, right? This is something they don't even say about the concept of redemption, not just being in the light of good, right? Not just being it's as if reality, at least for the psychological dualism of how man's mind is conditioned, right? And I'll be honest, like anybody could come and debate this. This is what you could say, like my personal theories. Pretty much, I call it the on and off light switch. All of human psychology has literally been conditioned and sculpted by the absence and presence of light. And presence of light means content. We are a species we're this unknown intelligence that became a species because it realized information is a greater energetic position to be in, right? Right now, we are in the information age, but people don't realize what that means. That means the world took a shift. That means if all our ancestors looked at us now and they were like, man, these modern generations are weak AF, right? Right? It's as if it's not just a weakness, it's like the world turned in the middle. It's as if you opened your eyes, or let's say you slept and you woke up and the world was different. Like, that's the transition into the information age, where human beings now have to become responsible for their inner bodies and inner lives. When I say a person's inner life, this is another way of saying who you are when nobody is there. This is really the secret of meditation, an ability to be so alone until the mind reveals the diamonds it has hidden in its throat. Right? So, but I'm gonna focus on this episode where pretty much, I'll be honest, the whole episode is me trying to unravel for the viewers that I am considering, and I'm trying to explain in this episode, but I'm pretty much considering that the species is at a disadvantage because it is identifying with how the past gives the moment meaning. But if we realize that the mind gives you an ability, the mind is the only place where a human being can have an interaction with the idea of a future, with the idea of untapped potentials of a species in the void. You understand, guys? Like, it's like the species is playing around with the past, not realizing the future is waiting, right? Like right now, in this moment, 2022, I'll be honest, people are gonna be like, Mr. Within, this is some like next level metaphysical language, but right now, I feel armies of human beings in the future watching us right now. I feel more than, what is the population, like 8 billion, more than 8 billion, could rise up to the point where interstellar cities are purchasable. Rise to that level of the future, right? The future is watching us now. That's the idea. And the future is waiting for us. And I feel that what divinity is contacting the future or knowing the future is here before it appears. I mean, that could be a bit of a solid definition, but like too solid definition. But pretty much what I'm trying to say is, alright, the species has entertained the idea of angels, right? We have entertained the idea of angels and demons, the idea of like fantasy and fictional creatures, the idea of superheroes, right? Like the mind of the human being has pretty much taken the human idea and has tried to push this archetype in anything it sees, right? In mythology, you find that like oceans, the sun, right, mountains, they were all given personality. Right? Like, what is mythology? It's man's attempt to see the human idea in everything. That's really what it is. And that is really, I would say, one of the superior findings of a religion that transcends language. Right now on the planet, there's many language-oriented religions, right? Like, pretty much what religions are trying to live in books. The world gets limited, right? And that's not the problem with religion. That's the problem with language, right? It's all about how much language occupies attention and how much language can be, how much attention can be released from language, right? So part of attention being released from language is the human mind not locking down the perception and potentials of image visualization to just what is visible. The human dilemma is like, what do we do with an antenna in the void? What's very fascinating is that true intelligence, I find, doesn't arise unless there is, I would say, the ability to reverse engineer everything you know back into the original. And the most simplest truth of knowledge is that the unknown is here first. I know no other way to lift the curse of language on a species. the future self of the species watches from a parallel dimension. It's another way of saying, just like how we know the past happened, the future knows how the present will happen. And there's a huge potential that the future self of the species is not human. Very giant potential. That humanity, what we call like a human being, is a phase. It's a phase in the greater waves of the natural world. In various talks, I've mentioned that the future could be like a dehumanized collective energy field. There's many ways that the future can be dehumanized, and when I say dehumanized, I'll give you examples. Like, one way the world and the future of the species can be dehumanized is like we realize we are all aliens. Like, consciousness is not from the earth, but it's here somehow. For some reason, right? That would be dehumanized. Suddenly we thought we were just humans on Earth, and then we became, unknown universal forces in the universe. We became, you could say, celestial movers in, terra incognita, in the unknown, abyss of the unknown. So, to me, I've noticed, like, to me, the whole New Age community is a way of seeking, I would say, 100% subjective freedom. But the strange thing about freeing one from their mind, from, let's say, the hassles, the disadvantages of the mind and the body, is that how much does the self in the moment, or how willing is the self in the moment to just let go, just like an iceberg breaking, like, it's as if, and it's kind of like how willing is the attention to stop being a subjective language-oriented self and watch the moment and realize the present is timeless. And the advantage of a timeless presence means that personality does not have anything to do, I shouldn't say it this way, actually. I should say personality is not the cursor to it's as if there is a timeless way that energy is being. And in the awareness of that timeless space, the reception of the antenna in the void is time. And I'm pretty much saying the species is like a bird, and imagine the left wing of the bird is like the past, and the right wing of the bird is the future. And so the bird has only been moving its left wing, thinking that it's like it's gonna fly, and it's wondering why it can't fly, and it's getting upset. Right, and so, but the actuality is that if a person, I think this is like an instant remedy to all psychological turbulence, right? But what it is that you look at how much of your thinking is based on the past, and the same amount of energy you put into the past, you put into ideas of the future. Behind your eyes, you can visualize future selves and even view those future selves from first perspective, like first person perspective. Right now I'm looking out through my eyes, but if I close my eyes and visualize how, like, in the future I'll be walking, it would be as if like I could see through those eyes and still there would be content, right? One of the greatest things that I learned was that, and I would say I'm still learning, is that the way I treat my own mind suggests its freedom. So when you come to this timeless presence and you're just being here, and then you look at the moment and it's like before any effort has been released in your inner realms for anything to happen in the outer realms. This might sound strange, but once you can trust nothingness, once you can be content with the emptiness of any image or story, then the images and stories come. Right? Imagine you're going about your day and you suddenly get this vision that like 200 years from now, the species might be trapped in some sort of artificial life that it didn't even know how it got into it. Right? It's as if the future's suffering can be seen from, the ivory towers of the great philosophers that are alive now. And so you get a vision of like how the future could suffer. And it's like suddenly out of nowhere you were going about your day and the mind wondered enough about the future to extract purpose. The cool thing about life is that in any moment you can literally, just like the phone on like people's phones, there's airplane mode. In any moment there could be like a no meaning mode. Right? Suddenly everything that has meaning can instantly be pushed aside. And this is something they don't even say, but it's like understanding has to do with inner effort, because inner effort is moving the whole thing. So it's like after you have trusted your body, which is pretty much everybody's trust of their body is second nature. Just like a baby deer is born and already knows how to jog, similarly, the human being already knows how to be the body. And that comfort is coming because we're sitting on a higher platform of the mind. Now, when a person wonders how can they get so comfortable, just like how they're comfortable with their body, how can they become comfortable with their inner realms of mind? And the only way is that you have to see something beyond your mind. And no spiritual system, like I would tell you, I've looked at various like ideological institutions with metaphysical context, and you know what I realized? Everybody is afraid of emptiness. And everybody's life is a strategy towards that subconsciously. Like, the future is here. It's already here, but it's here in our inner minds. It's like extraterrestrials, we can visualize it, Tolkien, visualize like Middle Earth. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, our inner realms can access in a perceivable way the future that hasn't happened yet. Our minds have access to the future and poetically are being it, right? And it's all about pretty much where like it's like the human consciousness is tasked between deciding what from the inner realms goes into the outer realms and how the mind, like a light reflecting from an outer object, articulates. In a changing world, we're looking for truth, and according to the inner realms, it's here. This might be a bit of a, let's say metaphysical stretch, but I would even consider that if God in the Abrahamic tradition is said to be inconceivable and is said to be watching mankind, and theology still doesn't answer why God made human beings, not because of what, but why. Why did this happen? The future is inconceivable, and the future watches the past in the same way right now we can remember what happened yesterday. So pretty much I would say divinity is like how hands from another dimension are moving this dimension. Now the question comes, whose hands? And this is the interesting thing where the inconceivable seems to be the most trustworthy. That means the person's like, let's say you're an ancient yogi and you're like, I don't trust anything in a changing world, right? The ancient yogis saw the world as a sort of materialistic simulation they had to escape from, And so I would say it's like the person can't trust something that's changing, so the person trusts the changeless. If everything is energy and everybody's energy, it's as if energy is being energy. And it's as if the major truth is like how existence is being. Not in accordance to shape, but just in accordance to the presence of some form, right? The mind is like a space where the geometry of existence is found in. The mind is the closest thing we have to a time machine, To continue, the species needs to begin, and this is one person's perspective, but I'm saying the species needs to start having a relationship with its future. And if the future in our minds is accessible, and our minds are a separate dimension than physical reality, it's as if what was trapped in, it's like we turned the simulation we were trapped into the opportunity of a universal remembrance. People have to, for a moment, consider that what really God is how the attention that's present is being the whole moment. And so simply, energetically, we just are. And the challenge is like, how can a person, so pretty much it's like with this natural organism living in an unnatural civilization, And this natural organism, this unnatural civilization is like, what unnatural strategy will help me in being more natural in an unnatural civilization, right? And so the strategy becomes the unnatural strategy that in the closest possible way resembles nature. I hope in the future, when people are asked about, let's say, their cultural, social, and, psychological philosophies, that we realize from the beginning we have been universal beings. We are all universalists, and we don't know it. We haven't noticed that we're a universal entity, not just a local, not just your own subjective realm space kind of entity. There is a freedom that comes from realizing the space where novelty can happen. In the theater of, sponsored by the periodic table, minds which are not objects but are like spheres of attention, the person begins having a relationship with how their personality is a projection of an instant presence. Once the person's comfortable and can trust a timeless moment, it's another way of saying if time was part of the code of how stories were written, a timeless being has no problem with time. It's like, and if like right now, a reason psychologically, I know that people are acting like temporary beings, is simply because, like, in their mind, they have accepted that information was who they are, but the viewer of the information, right? That means, I think, one of the most fascinating things that people can discover in hearing these Mr.Within talks is how their own attention is a sort of origin and beacon of consciousness. And once a person has a sort of comfort with how you are just being, and how if truth was here, it couldn't be anywhere else, you just reach this moment where the mind puts down, like the sword it was holding, puts down language. For a moment of this strange silence finds the person, and then in their preferencelessness, that means you're just watching as if you don't know what's going to happen, right? You begin accessing in your inner realms visions. And these visions, I'm not saying people have to, the nature of the mind is that it's like every person is left with how much they're going to trust the changing world. Trust its story. To me, it's like life is a film and every belief is like a snapshot film. So I'm pretty much trying to say that in a moment of just the person's like, man, I'm this unknown being in an unknown world, and what's going to happen next is also unknown, so if everything's unknown, let me watch that. And strangely, when that sort of view and state of mind is there, the way a person watches the unknown is that they come into the conclusion that what is even moving their attention through their eyes is unknown. So when the whole moment is unknown and the person is being in the unknown as an unknown being, that's when I would say it's as if the waves part, like for how it did for Moses. Like it would be a way of saying that the person managed to find a pure, silent stillness Just one moment is enough, and once you find this pure, silent, still moment, all your relationship with language changes. It's as if like the person thought they had to be redeemed, but they realized they were never that archetype that needed to be redeemed. It's like you suddenly realize the freedom of attention surpasses belief. So it's like your antennas, and you watch how your mind moves and how the unknown brings forth what it can. You know? Imagine somebody gets a divine message, and then before the messenger leaves, the person's like, "Hey, angel brought me a message. Is there more to the message, or is that it?" You know? And the angel's like, "No, I gave you the revelation." And the person's like, "Okay, I'm just checking." The mind has an ability to animate pretty much any shape that's there in your attention, right? And if a person focuses on how something's animating in their inner realms, after some time, the nature of experience being like a camera that's live all the time, you know? One's relationship with their own presence is actually a relationship of existence with instantaneous being, and in that instantaneous being, pure subjective freedom. Now, through that pure subjective freedom, a person can now begin wondering and asking themselves this question that, okay, my whole life I've thought about, you know, how my past is going to enter the future, but let me just for a moment wonder if my future wanted to contact me, how would that happen, or how would that be like, you know? And the best response to this would be to begin having a journal, right? You know, for me, writing is kind of like just the discovery of the ability of a creature to be able to write. That to me was like the gods had given us, you know, poetically mankind a gift. Writing is like a divine tool. It's like, you know, it's like alien. I'll be back, guys. What can I say? Every person's different. Everybody's eyes are destined for a different earth, you know. It's kind of cool, you know, one physical earth, we're all in. And behind our eyes, everybody's inside their inner earth. How earth is based on their experiences of it so far. I'm trying to change the relationship of how a species is using the past to define itself to start using the future to define itself. The idea of the future of mankind is another way of saying we're going beyond like chaos and order's first cycle. Because the nature of duality, people don't realize concepts, as long as they're in the presence of conscious attention, are eternal to that conscious attention. This is very important to be considered in metaphysics. It's like this. Let's say there's a known present and an unknown present, or let's say there's a known past, an unknown past, a known present, an unknown present. Let me write this down, actually. Okay. Let me see how my attention can move right now. Pretty much we have a human being. The human being has a relationship with time. Time divides to past, present, and future. For the past, due to the nature of the world being known and unknown, we say there's an unknown past, and then there's an unknown I'll repeat. There's an unknown past, there's a known past, there's a unknown. This handwriting is ridiculous. The known and the unknown for each of these, right? So when I think about the unknown past, it's a question mark. When I think about the known past, we call that history. When I think about the known present, we call that free will. And the unknown present, we call it divinity, which is a question mark. We come to the future, and the known future can be said to be imagination, and the unknown of the future is a question mark. That means we don't know our unknown past, our unknown present, and unknown future. The unknown present, at least, is kind of revealed to the known. future is waiting for us. In our inner realms, that is already here. In our outer realms, we are the unknown variable for the future. That means, let's say, the future of our species, we could have reached a certain point where I call it advancement beyond the language threshold. But imagine in the future, our future selves began to realize they were multidimensional and realize that this whole time, their experiences in time has been witnessed from a timeless space. It's as if before a concept was real, the concept was being observed from in the unreal particle. Once our personal relationship with the unknown is like resolved, then I find it's like only the collective dimension. In the future, if our future selves transcend time, they could be watching us right now. You know, all this thing about aliens and gods, it could just be the future of the species. And technically, religiously, from an Abrahamic sense, it's like everything returns to God, and it's as if everything is being pulled into the future. And what the future is how yesterday happened and tomorrow will. I think the main source of inspiration right now for every human being is to get to see what tomorrow is like. But the funny thing is that we have to build it. We have to build the future that inspires us to get out of the, let's say, suffering of the past. That means we need to have a vision of the future so advanced that it's as if the same way a person can remember a memory of the past, the person with the same ease and comfort can remember a vision of the future, a visualization of the future. Because selfhood comes down to memory. It's as if it's the smallest unit of mind, it's an event. And what the person is how something was interlinking, like a set, it's as if a mind was going through all of the person's memories and the lines. The tip of the mind was just like the present. Our past existed to us, but in our inner realms it continues to exist, right? That means even one's psychological relationship with their outer realms, it's like a person can, let's say there's two people, person A and person B, in the future they're walking in the street, and person A could in some sense feel like it's the Atman, or person A could no longer be a subject to itself. It's as if like one human being is walking with like an idea being its mask, and the other has taken off the mask and is being this kind of like subjective listener of how the moment happens. And both are going to be like people walking in the street. That means behind our eyes, like if they right now did a survey, right? And the survey was like, hey human being, are you a human behind your eyes? And I would say for most people, the suffering of the human archetype, it's like a heavy Iron Man suit to get into, you know? A sort of counterattack towards, let's say, the future, the fear of what can happen. It's like trying to see equivalently, like, it's like efficiency winning over inefficiency. The future is the designer's table. To continue, let's say the future the future, like our species had reached the point where it had realized the soul was a sort of timeless life in another dimension. It's as if death is the destination for a body, for an object, you know. But for a subject, it's like the destiny of the mind of an individual could be different than the destiny of the body of an individual. If the future wanted to make contact, it would be as if like I had to have this consideration, just like how can I contact my past memories. Let's say I was in my mind I have a vision of what I did yesterday, and somehow from this moment I could time travel back to that vision of yesterday and tell my yesterday, what was happening now. The only way would be if at the creation of my past memory I was open-minded, so that if there is so it's as if right now we're a memory of our future self, and our future self wants to contact its past self, its present self, let's say, right? It would be another way of saying that if the future contacted us, would we freak out or not? Right? And I'm trying to get the species into the stage of just pure witnessing antenna in an unknown world vibe, right? Where they can actually see what is moving. Because what is moving as us and who we can, there's a reason the idea of the soul exists, because there's a sort of there's a prime mover, which is being the attention that is being the life to receive. The species has to have a maturity to not, like right now people are fighting over ideas, fighting over linguistic truths, and I'm like, oh my god, we're still savages, right? Rather than realizing language is a technology, and how this technology is used is similar to a sharp object being used to cook food or hurt people. You see the difference? The future is how able we are to wonder about what it could be, and that's like freedom enough for something. Here, I'll create an example. Let's say there's a human being, okay, and this human being wanted to be free. And freedom was the ultimate goal of attention, And imagine this person was so able that in anything they entered, they could instantly be free from it. After freedom of circumstance, then the person desires the freedom to shape the circumstance. Right? It's as if that's the strange thing about conditional freedom, at least. Where, because it's conditional, it's an infinite expression. That means it's kind of like how Salvador Dali says, don't fear perfection, you'll never reach it. It's like poetically, don't fear, not getting enlightened, because as long as you're reaching for it, it's like you haven't realized its nature is more instantaneous than that. Psychological freedom from time is just an instantaneous awareness. This is I think everybody knows, everybody's had this, anybody who's waited for something ever in their life, it's as if the feeling of how attention is just present. If I wanted to contact my memory of yesterday, I would, I'm thinking about this, let's say we were time travelers and we wanted to go in the past, and we were how should we do it, right? first thing would be is that invisible, like floating spacecraft or something. You know, it's as if time machines need to be like ships that are flying. Right? So invisibility would be the first point, as if the person being comfortable that there's invisible events happening while something visible event is happening. The second view would be like, okay, that past self has to have the capacity to be released from its own past. So let's say a person has their memories are like, let's say a person's stressed out, and so their memories are kind of like creating suffering for them, right? It's like who I was yesterday should have enough psychological freedom for who I will be in the future. That means after the treasures in the outer realms have been gathered, it's as if like the person begins wondering about the deeper truths to how a psychological entity can own anything in the void. You know, on some level the value of everything is nothing, because what do we do with all the nothing that is everywhere? There's empty space, right? Like, just to take that in, that the world is hovering in the middle of nowhere. You know, they don't teach that in schools, you know, it would scare the kids, you know. I think the ultimate freedom is that the person is experientially free in a way where the concept of freedom is like it was never here. It's as if being free before the idea of freedom. Instantaneous access, like the nature of the mind is not like the mind remembers memories like a film going from the past to the future, but the mind's instantaneously going. Right? The human mind has an ability to pretty much simulate instantaneously reality overlaid on outer reality. And when the mystery of our own eyes returns, that's when I think humanity, like that's when the species can trust. Right? You can trust your world if your world is not ignoring the world. You know? It's as if like we're trying to cover the eyes of a species, you know, with stories that we know what's going on as a species, but we actually don't know. Right? That means it's as if the world is bigger than how objects are just here. You know, something is moving in the middle of nowhere, like we are the divinity in the room. It's as if when existence moves, you know, in the void, like, you know, what else can divinity be? I find that the future psychologically will reach a point where the individual archetype realizes it's actually being the collective archetype. So right now, this is, you could say this is one of Mr. Within's predictions, the future is going to be a collective mind. Psychological individuals that we're experiencing now in the future, it's probably going to be like the same sort of shift, I would say. You know what it is? It's going to be like this notion that a psychological truth is going to be more attractive, you know, than an existential truth in the future. Right now, we're being individuals identifying with our body from the eventually it's like, at least in my experience, there comes this moment where whatever you know is just like a video game put on pause. And the silence is the first answer. And then language is the second. So what I'm trying to say is that once you accept the unknown attention that you have been from the beginning of your journey in this waking world, our eyes have opened not for just a story of truth, for the actualization of it. That means like the simplest, to me, this is like the glory of an advanced civilization, where the members of that civilization realize that the advanced is possible. Everybody is looking for advancement. I mean, that's really like, I think like one word to define marketing. Everybody's wondering about like what's the next advanced thing. Even if not consciously, subconsciously, it's just the nature of time. The moment we have a past, and then we also have a future. And it's as if like, what is an intelligence do that has a physical, biological existence, has a non-physical, subjective, psychological experience of existence? It's as if there's an existential dimension and then there's an experiential dimension. And it's as if, what does the person do with all the ways and the geometry of the relationship of their own world with the world around them? You know, really what art is how we crawl out from our inner worlds into the realization of like, it's pretty much discovering parallels between a private universe and a public universe. It's as if wondering about beyond the voice of your own eyes, you reach the point. I'm just trying to imagine if my future self came back, I would probably look at it and look at my future self and be like, I'm disappointed you had to come back. We live for the future, and the future is dependent on the past. We are living for the potential of the past and its actualization in the future. The species needs to go into this sort of poetic, let's say cultural hyper-intelligence, where we find contentment with an unknown presence of attention that we're being. It's as if the person realizes it's okay to, for a moment, consider that they don't know what is looking through their eyes. And once the known options are tried out, one is left with pretty much poetically reverting to their own original earth. It's as if I'm trying to tell, creatures in one dimension that there's another dimension, but that other dimension is dependent on how much you're willing to see beyond this dimension. Right? It's as if like so many things in life are multidimensional, and when it comes to human identity, we're ignoring the multidimensionality of it. Like this is like something like a group of advanced philosophers need to go figure out. You know? For me, I would give it maybe like in 200 years, pretty much. I see a sort of potential cyberpunk reality. What I mean by that is that technology is going to be more natural than nature. And when technology is more natural than nature, it's as if nature is trying to be converted into a technological value, right? It's as if the spirit of nature is being converted into technological infinitude. You know, our eyes are trying to journey beyond our bodies as the advancements of our species. Now we need to bring, you know, what we have been unconsciously doing into the conscious. Right? Pretty much this is this, you could say, in today's time, like there's protests and war, and the species seems to be psychologically confused about what it is. It's like in these times, I'm just being like, okay, we can't build something advanced if we don't have honor. Where does our honor come from? From that which is beyond us in value. And for me, when I think about the dimensions of life and what is beyond me, I would say on a psychological level, that's the concept of the future. But on, let's say, an existential level, what is beyond me is like the rest of the world to unravel. It's as if the unknown is a state where a conditional mind cannot access. Because a conditional mind is centering itself in the known. Right? It's another way of saying like the mind's like this instrument, and some culture and society conditions you to play this instrument in a certain way. But at some point, the person has to just put down the instrument, look at it for a while before picking it up, and then pick up the instrument and realize the rhythms of its movement, the rhythms of expression. Because what life is like an attention from, like, imagine a theater, and it's like you're sitting in an auditorium, it's like that attention to what comes in the theater. Pretty much the person gets to a point where they can observe how a subject is moving an object. It's like you were looking at a puppet for a while and you realize the strings, and now you've been looking at the strings for a while and you're realizing what they're connected to. And what they're connected to is not something that could be rationalized because the cosmos of the unknown world we're in owes us nothing. Especially if there's a chance we're in a multidimensional reality, it's like then every progress of mankind is incomplete. We've made incomplete progress as a species. And if a person honestly thinks about the future of something for a while, like they're gonna see, like, imagination appears on its own. Like right now, I'm looking at this bench on my balcony, and it's like when I think about the future of that bench, I could see like there's gonna be like hover benches, More advanced than that, it's like holograms that you can sit on, like a holographic chair. That's like 300 years from now. The future of anything that has a past is something that just awaits to be extracted. Our minds give us an ability to reconsider reality from our own private world, our private server. And I'm just saying, all of mysticism, anybody who's looking for enlightenment, it's just wondering about who you are and what is that is moving now. That means, can we give a name to an experiential existential movement? Is language enough? Or is there something more than language that the species has forgotten? Right? Aside from the presence of nature, the presence of, you could say, some branches of reality. We think reality is just one branch. It's like in the future it's going to be a tree. Right? There's no point for a species where everybody has different DNA and different eyes. There's no point of saying everybody has to agree to the same thing. But when it comes to the future, that's a universal idea. And it's as if the person takes themselves out of cultural suffering into a universal identity. It's as if you start living behind your eyes in the fascination that what if the most advanced intelligence is being this way. Not something with an archetype. It's not like an alien wearing like a liquid hat. It would be like to a point where how would I tell you? The future is our birthright. Every person, by just existing with a memory, it's as if every person is destined for the future. And if for a moment we're not temporary beings, just consider this, that the mind's not an object, and there's this notion of like an eternal witness. It's as if, what if before we had our names, we were being the eyes of this part of the universe, like we are the eyes of nature. But we are the eyes of nature that responded in an unnatural way to nature. It's as if the whole point of human consciousness, guys, I've thought about this so much, where I'm like, why did we evolve? Just to be aware of our suffering. In the same way, in a sci-fi way, there's this view that if a robot becomes conscious, it's going to suffer because of why we created it, right? Similarly, it's as if I'm like, okay, what is the meaning of existential movement? And because we have a storehouse of energy, because we're energetic beings, effort is the purpose. Effort is purpose, actually. Anything that a person's putting effort in, it's as if indirectly it's like the purpose is being served. Because where does energy go? The energy of our being has to go somewhere. Or it has to change in some way, right? Who we are is not a character in a story. It is a witness of a film that's still being directed, by the world and us. It's like, what's reality? A film co-directed by the self and unknown world, self and nature. It's like nature's like action, and like children are born in the void, like that's how. The mysteries of the world, it can be overwhelming, but that's I would say that's their beauty. Like that's what makes it fascinating, right? It's the person realizes the unknown is like an infinite potential to do something that hasn't been done, right? If everybody in history did the same thing, there would be no point of even writing that history. The purpose of our intelligence is in searching for the dimensions where rhythmically we can just being conscious is like an incredibly advanced thing. When the species awakens from the language simulation, it's going to discover so much hidden ability. Like, I'm just waiting for the future, even though I could see some potential disasters. Like, I also see, like, incredible, like, ways it could boost. I could even say that the future is watching the present, and all that it's waiting is for us to trust it. Without trust, how there can't be, like, the display of new dimensions of the unknown. It's like trust is another way of saying the world is accepted, and when the world is accepted, the person can see the world. It's like a species waking up from the dreams of language into responsibilities of universal. Anyways, thanks for listening, and I guess this is one of those episodes I don't know. Anyways, thanks.